We had a tour of India, I think about 2003. And when we came back from India, everybody got sick. Regal almost died from like a heart parasite, and this guy Lance Storm was sick, and Tommy Dreamer was sick, and it was just everyone was kind of going down with injuries. So what they were going to do, because we were losing some guys, was they were going to build the whole show around Christian and Jericho against Booker T and Goldust. And what was going to happen was they were going to go into the dressing room and steal our clothes. And then the rest of the show, Christian and I would be looking through the arena in towels trying to find our clothes. Then we'd go out to the stage because Booker and Goldust would be in the ring. We got your clothes. And then they would have the clothes and they would start throwing them onto the ground. And while that was happening, somebody would come up behind us and take our towels off to where we would be standing there naked. You heard what I said. We would be standing there in front of 10,000 people naked. And I'm like, so how do we disguise this? Like, you don't. What? Vince wants you to be naked. And I said to Michael Hayes, are you kidding me? He goes, well, you don't want to do it? I said, do you? I'm not a Chippendales dancer. There's little kids in the crowd. I'll get arrested for being a pedophile. So I said, Mike, I'm not doing it. There's no way. And Christian was kind of scared because he was just getting the push at the time, and he was just like, dude, we're not. You want to stand there naked? No, we're not doing it. Then 10 minutes later, Vince wants to see you. I'm like, of course he does. I go in the office. He's like, hey, so I heard you have a question about today. I said, I don't have a question. I have a statement. Yes, I'm not doing it. I am not standing naked in front of a crowd on Monday Night Raw. And he's like, well, damn it, what are we supposed to do then? I'm like, so aren't you going to get kicked off the air? He's like, well, we'll shoot it from far away. Who cares? A cock's a cock. It's going to be in the shot. You know what it is. There's a shoulder, there's a bicep, there's a calf, there's a cock. So then he goes, well, what do you suggest we do? I said, well, why don't we have, if you absolutely insist on having us do this, why don't you have the seamstresses make us like a flesh-colored G-string thong, and we can at least wear that. And then on top of that, put one of those like digitizing things over us once it happens. Well, that's not as good. What's wrong with you? So then he agrees on that. And then we start going through what the guys are going to find in our bags, in our gear bags. You throw out some wrestling boots and throw out some tape, throw out some ladies' lingerie, throw out some high heels. I'm like, hold on. Like, now we're transvestites? He goes, yeah. I said, what the did I do to you, man? He's like, it's funny. I said, how's it funny? You know, now, like at the point, I was already angry about him wanting me to stand naked. I do understand how pulling out some women's underwear might be funny. At the time, I wasn't having it. I was like, this is not funny. I don't give a f***. So then we came up with the idea, if you guys remember, ass cream. And Bubba's big line was ass cream. What exactly do you do with ass cream? So Vince agreed that ass cream was okay. And then right as we're about to go out, we're in the first segment because we're having a match against Booker T and Goldust. They're going to beat us, which led us going for a shower, which led them to stealing our clothes, et cetera, et cetera. We're out there like 10 minutes before Raw starts. And I'm like, okay, so is everybody ready? Yeah, Christian's there. Goldust is there. I'm here. And Booker T is getting wheeled out on a stretcher. What's going on? Oh, he just collapsed from dehydration. What are you talking about? He has to go to the hospital. What? He's got a match in 10 minutes. He's got to pull out the ass cream. So this is what you guys never see. We had to switch it to the Dudleys with 10 minutes notice, and the whole show is built around us, which is fine, but the match was the thing. It's like in 10 minutes, you know, and I'm like, everyone calm down. We're going to get this right. Everyone just take it easy. And I remember the three guys were sitting there going, we're calm. What's the problem? I was like, I don't know. There's no problem. And we did the match, and it worked out, and then they found our clothes and found the ass cream, and Spike Dudley took our towels off, and we ran around like idiots, and that was it.
And just a great, I did not know what the answer to that question was going to be, so the next question seems like I did know. I'm just going to ask this one. Ryan.
Hold on, let me see it. Okay. All right, so Ryan has written a question for us. Signed his name. And Kenny, because you have the accent, why don't you ask Ryan's question?
Who has the biggest penis in AEW?
Ryan, ask your mom.
Ryan's mum, everybody. What was the reaction of both Tony Khan and Vince McMahon to you doing the Steve Austin podcast?
Well, that's a funny question because you make it sound like I did it under cover of night. I mean, the only reason why that happened is because Tony and Vince agreed on it. I mean, let's not get carried away here. It's interesting because when I got that opportunity, I was thinking, like, how is this going to work? But if you notice, like, Tony is very open. He's never had this problem of being, like iconoclast. He wants to do business with, you see, we did Forbidden Door, and then we have, we've got the AAA guys and all this other stuff. And as a matter of fact, I got asked to do the John Cena video for his 20th anniversary. I filmed that backstage right after our Forbidden Door match. So I did the match with AEW and New Japan, then went backstage and did a video for WWE. Like, that's kind of our world now. WWE could never do that. They would never allow, you could never even mention other wrestling companies. They didn't exist, And so when the idea came for me to do Steve's show, I was like, Vince allowed this? He goes, yes, Steve pitched it and Vince allowed it. And now why would that be? There has to be something in it for Vince. It's not because he wants to hear my stories. What it was is they had just debuted on what's called the Peacock Network in the States. It's a streaming app. It was right before WrestleMania. They were trying to sell as many subscriptions as they could. I think Chris Jericho being on Steve Austin's podcast on the WWE Peacock Network would sell some subscriptions. So it was very smart on Vince's part. But what was also smart is I did that interview 3 days before the first Blood and Guts, which was our highest rated show at the time. So by Vince getting buys because of me, people then watched it and went, what's Chris Jericho been doing if they don't know AEW, and went and checked out AEW. So it was very reciprocal for all of us. But yeah, if you look, nobody else has done it since from AEW, and it might never happen again. Because I also said, too, we have to talk about AEW, and you can't edit it out. And thankfully, the producer of the show was a guy that I worked with very, very closely, called Dan Pucciarelli, and it was Steve. Steve and I are very close. We're still good friends to this day. He's one of the only guys that only calls. He doesn't text. He only calls. And here's the problem with Steve. When he calls, if you answer, put the next 60 minutes on hold, because he likes to talk. If you do not have time to talk to him, then you got to wait. But if you don't call him back, now I'm not calling back Stone Cold Steve Austin. I'm a dick. So you got to have that hour put aside to talk to Steve. But I knew if he was behind it, that it would all work out. And it really did. I watched it back the first time with bated breath, a little scared as what they would edit and not edit. And they left it all pretty much clean. And I thought it was really, really well done and did great both for WWE and for AEW as well.
Is it true that you defended the women's title at a house show because you didn't have the IC title against Rey Mysterio?
That's a good question. So here's what happened. I left the Intercontinental Championship at the hotel. And the arena was somewhere, not a big city, but big enough where it was like on the other side of town. And it took me about 30 minutes to get there. I think the hotel was by the airport, and we were somewhere in the middle of the city. And I get there, and it's like, I don't have the Intercontinental Championship. And I have a title match against Rey Mysterio. I have to come to the ring with something. So I think Melina was the women's champion at the time. I said, can I use your title? Like, no one's going to notice, right? No one's going to see anything, whatever. So I go to the ring, have the match, whatever. A month later, there's a wrestling magazine that comes out. And for some reason, there was a freelance photographer who happened to be ringside in, I don't know, Schenectady, New York, that took a picture of me standing in the ring with the title over my shoulder, and it says WWE Women's Championship. Once again, who's going to care? Vince wants to see you. Hey, Vince. What is this? Where the did that come from? The wrestling magazine. It's like, who took that picture of all the days? I wrestled 200 times this year. 199 times I had the title, and the one time I don't, some takes a picture and puts it in his wrestling magazine, and I got fined $2,500. This is bad. This is bad for the company. I said, he goes, next time you go back to the hotel, you pick up the title, you bring it back to the arena. You got to be professional, damn it. I said, I thought I was being a professional. I didn't know that some stupid guy would be there with a camera. So yes, I did have the women's championship. I did not defend the women's title. I defended the Intercontinental Championship with the women's title in place of it, and some dipshit took a picture and put it in his wrestling magazine.